Hello Year 9s, welcome to the next section of your poetry unit. We're going to be looking at ballads and sonnets together as they're really similar styles of poetry, and the focus is just the rhyming structure and getting used to that. So to begin with, some history on the ballad that originated from as early as the 1200s in Europe, so it's been around for a couple hundred years, staying hugely popular because ballads are often set to a song. And many of our modern songs are structured as ballads. They were absolutely huge in the 60s and 70s. We've moved to more untraditional ones like that video on technology from last term, but it's still pretty prominent. And the aim of a ballad is to tell a story. So not unlike the haiku about describing a fleeting moment, a ballad is really about taking the reader or listener on a journey. The structure of a ballad is the 4 lines in a stanza. So if you haven't come across a stanza before, that's essentially just a paragraph in a poem. So the haiku, with its 3 lines, those 3 lines would make up a stanza. And then you could have another stanza of another 3 lines. So yeah, just the paragraphs. The important thing about the ballad is that the 2nd and 4th line contain an end rhyme. So we've got a little poem here helping us out. A ballad is a traditional poem. Each stanza has 4 lines. Ballads tell a story with poetic devices and rhymes. So we can see in the 2nd line here and the 4th one, there's rhymes happening. Sometimes the 1st and the 3rd line can rhyme as well, but they would be very different. So they wouldn't be rhyming with the same sound as this. It would be something different. Going over to the sonnet now as well, 1200s in Italy it came out. Initially it was love poems, but now it's anything to do with passion. So it's really about getting across some passions. So it's really describing a conflict and then generally reaching a resolution by the end. So similar storytelling, but a bit more specific with a conflict and resolution. The structure traditionally was 14 lines, but modern adaptations can often be just 4-line stanzas, sometimes 6, anyway, but the main feature is that the consecutive lines will rhyme. So, another little poem for a reminder, sonnets don't have to be 14 lines. Most importantly, there's immediate rhymes, just following that straight after one another, and then they could have another 2 lines here. The poetic features across both of these, because they're, stories, you want a plot progressing, and that's a really important thing. And yeah, telling the story, you don't want to just tell the reader, you want to really show them. So the poetic techniques I want to focus on are things that create vivid imagery. So things like similes, which I'm sure you've come across before, comparing one thing to another with like or as. So as quiet as a mouse, perhaps. Metaphors are comparisons saying an object is something else. So he was a lion in the fight. And then hyperboles are an exaggeration, not to be literally believed. So, things like I could eat a horse. Obviously you can't. Going into what your folio will look like, really similar to the haiku. I want your poem you find put on the left, and then explanations of any techniques you found here on the right. At the top, I want you identifying whether it's a ballad or a sonnet, and then telling me the title. So I found one called a ballad called Out at Sea. We cast out again to the wild sea, where the fresh air heals all ails. With the sun shipwrecked on the horizon, we see the whole ocean rocky with whales. Straight away, I found some personification, so going on what we talked about with haikus, talking about air as if it can heal you. Obviously, air is an inanimate thing in our world, so it can't literally take care of you, but it has that ability to make you feel better and things like that. Next, I found the metaphor in the sun shipwrecked on the horizon. So it's saying the sun is sitting on the horizon, much like a ship sits on the bottom of the ocean. So it's creating that imagery of the sun being at sunset because it's not up in the sky. And finally, we've got the whole ocean rocky with whales. So obviously the whole ocean can't be full. We need some water in there. So that one there's a hyperbole. Just creating the imagery that there are a lot of whales out there. So giving a beautiful scene. The next part of your folio, you need to be answering 3 questions, just like you did before. The first one asking, what is the story being told in your chosen ballad or sonnet? Going back to my example here, basically it's just the story of someone going out to sea and enjoying the views. And then if I were to bring an example or evidence to support that, I would say the first line in the stanza says we cast out again to the wild sea. So it's telling us that we're going out to sea. The second question, how did the writer aim to make you feel about the story, and how do they do this? So are you feeling happy, sad, angry, content? And are there literary techniques made to really get that across? Looking at my poem again, I'm going to make the judgment that the aim was to make me feel quite content and happy about it. So creating imagery of the sunset through the sun shipwrecked on the horizon, and the whole ocean full of whales creates that beautiful imagery. And then, the idea of the air healing me creates a sense of, healing and calm and contentment. You're not stressed out there. So really explaining the fact that the metaphors and sonification did that for you. And then finally, was it a successful ballad? Why or not? Or successful sonnet, as well. You don't always have to say it's successful as well. Looking at this, what really happens in this story? You go out to sea and then you're looking around. It's more similar to the haiku of describing where you are. So I might say it's not very successful because it's not describing a story. And things like shipwrecked and rocky are actually quite strong and aggressive language, so that might actually not support the idea that I thought it was calm, so it might not be successful in that way. But really bringing in evidence. What is it about the poem that made you feel that it wasn't quite successful? So your next step from here is to get up on Google, try and find a song or a rap, anything that you have heard in the music world, in the form of either a sonnet or a ballad. You need to get 1, 2, or 3 stanzas, put it in your folio just like this. Tell me if it's a ballad or a sonnet, put the title up here, and start identifying the techniques you can find. Be really cautious when you are searching for your chosen song or rap. Make sure there are some techniques in there. Have a read through, think, can I identify a metaphor here, or a hyperbole, or a simile? Make sure that there are things there for you to talk about. And then after that, you'll be putting these questions into your folio, answering them with evidence from your sonnet or ballad. Good luck.